Hello and welcome to the United Community Channel. Welcome to Red Hot Takes. This is episode number 2, and we're back with another episode about all things Manchester United, where we bring Manchester United creators together to discuss everything to do with United. We've got Adam, aka Tom Aldino, is back on with us again this week. How are you doing, man? All good?
All good, Jack. All good. Doing well as always.
Good, happy days. I'm making his debut on the channel to my right or left. I'm not quite sure what way the camera works, but we've got Drew Brown from Instagram, big Manchester United fan from United States. How we doing, man?
Doing really good. Thank you for the invite on the show, Jack.
You're absolutely welcome. Right, guys, we're going to jump into it. We're going to talk, plenty to talk about around Manchester United. Obviously, United have had a game since we've last done one of these shows, so we'll talk a little bit about a comfortable win against Leicester City, it has to be said. We're going to talk a little bit about the increase to season ticket prices and maybe the bit of backlash that it's gotten from some of the United supporters groups. We're also going to talk a little bit about transfer news as well, guys. We've got updates on Jadon Sancho, we've got updates on Andre Onana, and United striker search continues as well. So we're going to talk a little bit about that. Drew, I want to get your opinions first. Obviously, welcome to the channel and thanks for joining us. We'll jump in and talk about the Leicester game the other day, and it was a rare, easy win for Manchester United against Leicester. We didn't really have to come out of second gear. What's your overall thoughts on? Let's keep it to the Ruben Amorim era, and how maybe we've been progressing over the last few games.
Yeah, I mean, if the fans were chanting for almost nearly the entire game, that's easily one of the best games that United has played, like overall in 90 minutes. This was a expected win, and the boys got it done. If Aiden Heaven is performing very well against these teams in the Premier League, then obviously Leicester City are not on a really good level right now with us. But yeah, I mean, I really wish Aiden Heaven did not get injured. He's been very pivotal for us in the last 3 games, or just whenever time he showed up on the pitch. Yeah, and that was very fun to see him play. But overall, I thought the performance was very well. Especially getting a clean sheet. We rarely see that this season.
Yeah, absolutely. Adam, give me your breakdown on it. Obviously, I seen your match reaction to it as well on TikTok, and it was generally positive, which is good. You know what I mean? There wasn't. I don't really think there was any real negatives to take from the game. Outside of the fact that Aiden Heaven got injured. But what was your thoughts on it?
Yeah, for once, no negativity. But no, it was a great performance. And look, I won't lie, I was out for a few drinks. I did see like the full second half, really. And yeah, again, I completely agree with everything that Drew said. Like Aiden Heaven was unbelievable. And you can see that he's kind of grown to the team already, which is really good. I didn't really expect him to grow into the team that quickly, but it's just so unfortunate that he got that injury. Hopefully it's not too serious. And look, it is what it is. But again, it was a great 3 points. And, I was very impressed with the likes of Bruno again. Like Bruno, for me, is on another level right now. And he's really carrying us. Like people say, Bruno FC, he is carrying us a lot. But I was very impressed with the likes of Højlund again. That's 2 good performances in a row. A goal as well. Very helpful for him, and hopefully he can go on maybe a mini scoring run and build some confidence. Garnacho, played very well as well, got a goal, maybe could boost his confidence as well. So all round very good, and hopefully now after the international break we can go on a bit of a run, because these players need confidence and they need a bit of a winning run, to really guide them towards the end of the season, and hopefully maybe get a bit of success after.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, look, speaking about international breaks, it's always difficult coming back from an international break, Drew, isn't it? Because, and especially with how well United have been doing over the last couple of games, and again, we try not to get too carried away, because we've had some false dawns before, on the back of the Arsenal and Liverpool kind of couple of games a few weeks back, a couple of months ago. And, Amorim was a bit upset about, he was upset about having a good performance against the likes of Arsenal and Liverpool, saying, where was that performance, against maybe the lesser teams? Is there a concern? Like, is it a bad time for the international break to come? Because it's always hard to pick up the ball again and start running with it as soon as the international break is over.
Yeah, you see, that was one of the things I'm worried about for this international break, because from November to March is the longest break in the season for the international window, and clubs get the most time, or players get the most time with their clubs. And to see the progress that Ruben has made from this team from November all the way to the last 4 matches that United has played, it just seems like the boys are finally starting to understand the expectations and this system that Amrin has put into place. But, it's kind of like studying for a test. Like, you keep on studying and studying, and then you know that those answers are on the back of your head. But if you lack that dedication, then the answers start to fade away. But it's kind of like this 2-week international break. Maybe we might see, hopefully not a dip in the understanding of this formation and the understanding of the roles, and that the momentum doesn't go down. I'm really hoping that they can get back from this international window and then maintain the same level as they did the last 4 games.
Yeah, absolutely. And Adam, it's probably to United's benefit that a lot of United players are actually not called up to their international, country, up to their teams. The likes of Xerxes been overlooked. I think Rashford doesn't matter anymore, but who else is there?
Garnacho.
Garnacho has been overlooked. Sorry, that was the other one as well. And Ruben Amorim spoke, after the game the other day about, splitting up the team. Some of them need a rest. Some of them, need maybe a little bit of work. And, is it an opportunity maybe because not everybody is going on international break to get them onto the training ground? We've heard Ruben Amorim speak quite in depth about, needing time on the training ground, as much time as possible. This is clearly an opportunity to do that.
Yeah, absolutely. Like these players, we've seen them go on mini runs here and there, like Drew mentioned there, the Arsenal and, Liverpool game and stuff like that. And, then they go back to inconsistent Man United, losing to the likes of Palace and teams like that. It's just not good enough. But hopefully with this international break, and it did come at a bit of a bad time because we were starting to go on a bit of a run. We were putting in good performances here and there. But with the likes of Garnacho, Xerxes, other players not being called up, hopefully they can go onto the training ground this week and next week and, put in some good performances in training and, just get back up to speed really when, the Forest game comes around next week. So, and look, that's a bit of a tough period as well because we have Forest, Man City at home, then we have Newcastle away. I think we have the Lyon game in between that as well away. So very tough away fixtures and obviously the derby. So, but again, look, it's an opportunity for these players, to work hard, dedicate themselves and actually show that they're worthy of playing, because they have done that in the last couple of games. But it's about going on that run, and maintaining this confidence and maintaining this, kind of spirit that we're kind of starting to see with the players now. So I just hope they can go on a run and just keep winning.
Yeah, exactly, as much as possible. Drew, I want to get your opinions. Obviously, it's your first time on the channel about Rasmus Højlund. We're talking about the international break coming at a bad time, and he's been waiting for a goal for so long now. And me and Adam spoke about it last week. But what's your overall opinions on him? Do you think he's good enough, as a striker for Manchester United? Obviously, to me specifically, he looks like a very a confidence player. He needs confidence to perform. And he hasn't had an awful lot of that in the last few games. Now, look, he doesn't get a lot of service as well. But, I mean, even the goal he scored against Leicester the other day, he's had a lot easier chances than that over the last 22, 23 games that he hasn't maybe put away. What's your overall opinions on him and maybe his future at Manchester United?
It's a good question. The thing is, United right now need a clinical striker that can score consistently and not every 15, 20 games. That's not good enough for the United standard. I did feel happy, Rasmus finally got his goal after a very long goal drought. I'm hoping that he can get more goals for the rest of the season, especially that he can show up in the big games after the international break. Hopefully, maybe he can get a goal for Denmark in this international break.
Yeah,
boost even more of his confidence up. But if he just continues to, get back in that bad form, then I don't think that he's good enough to be playing for a top Premier League club.
Yeah, and is there an argument there for maybe some of the pressure to be taken off him? Because, if we go and sign which I do agree with you, I do think we need an experienced striker to be brought in the summer. Is there an argument there to keeping Rasmus Højlund on as a number 2 to take the pressure off, maybe, just be in the shadows a little bit, play his trade behind the scenes, maybe play 1 in 3, 1 in 4 games, because if we're talking about getting Joshua Zirkzee is a self-declared 9.5. Is he going to be a backup to a Victor Osimhen or a Gyökeres? Is there an argument to actually keeping Højlund on as a number 2?
Yeah, no, he's like, the thing is with Zirkzee, he's a completely different profile as well as a forward, as a striker, so I think having him and Højlund is not really suitable. We need a player kind of similar to Højlund, an all-round kind of striker, that can hold up the ball, make a run in behind, and actually finish his dinner, because Højlund at the moment has 1 goal in, 18, 19 games, it's not sustainable, so we do need maybe an experienced striker that has done it in a couple of leagues or has, scored 20 goals, in the last 2 or 3 seasons, each season. We do need that kind of striker, and then we can have Zirkzee as a different profile, to maybe play in like a false 9 kind of position or one of those 10 roles. So, we do need an experienced striker that has done it, maybe to help Højlund. But if we bring an experienced striker in and Højlund is still stinking out the gaff whenever he plays, then, there's no point in keeping him. There isn't,
Yeah. Well, and to add to that, Drew, I mean, do you think there's the options of him for him to stay, or do you think, because it's always a balancing act, really, isn't it? Do you want to hold on to a player too long and lose value if he doesn't play, or do you try and cash it? Like, Ineos seem to me, even in the first 12 to 18 months that they've been there, that they won't hang around with players and they'll say, all right, well, we're not going to get much more out of you. Do we move them on now? What's your opinions with Højlund with that?
Yeah, it's a tough thing to address for sure. I wouldn't say like immediately selling him like this summer would be the most like productive option. Maybe you could even put him on loan somewhere. Let's say the Bundesliga or La Liga somewhere, kind of like what Anthony's doing right now at Real Betis. But it's a different position to play. I would say Højlund's still young. He's still 22, 23, and so you have to give the guy some time. Maybe 1 more season, we'll see. But if he just continues like putting on stinker performances, like Adam mentioned, he's not worth the investment for the long term.
You just know for a fact though, if he goes on loan, he's going to score 25 goals. You just know that.
Yeah, and the thing about it is, and someone made a great. I can't remember who made the point about Anthony last week, and it was so true. And it's the difference between these players going and playing abroad than playing in the Premier League is the physicality. You can go to La Liga like Anthony has, and all of a sudden he's looking around going, I've got loads of space here. Let me take a shot and see what happens, Whereas the Premier League, you don't get that time and space, and there is that argument to, if you're going to send somebody out on loan to gain experience, how much experience will they get in a lesser league in comparison to maybe playing 15 or 20 games less in the Premier League, and I think Højlund would actually, on a personal level, I think he would probably it would be more beneficial if he stayed in the Premier League and played 25 games a season, whether it's off the bench or, he would probably go to the Serie A and come back the same. You know what I mean? I think, but look, again, that's a question for future days. I want to go from a player who's struggling to a player who absolutely is not, Drew, and that's Bruno Fernandes. What a brilliant spell he's going through at the moment, and he's got his criticisms over the last couple of weeks, none more so than Roy Keane, and he seems to be doing a really, really good job at keeping people quiet. I mean, I think you mentioned it last week, Adam, that if Bruno Fernandes wasn't in this team, we would be in a relegation battle, And what have you made about Bruno Fernandes, Drew? As a captain in general, not more so even the fact that he's chipping in with goals and assists.
I think one of the greatest assets that Bruno Fernandes has for the team is his constant availability for the team. You rarely see him get injured. You rarely see him get suspended. I mean, we're gonna put out the Wolves, but if you had a captain that constantly shows up for the team, constantly is engaged on the field, I mean, besides, the constant bickering with the refs, I mean, in my point of view, that just shows like how passionate he is to be a player on the field and to be the captain for the team. And so I think that's one of his greatest gifts that he can give to the United team, is that he'll always be there, even for the big or the small, or just whenever he needs to show up.
Yeah, absolutely. Adam, I mean, his again, Drew has hit the nail on the head with his availability, and statistically, he's up there with the greatest players in the Premier League since he signed in terms of goals and assists, but he doesn't seem to get the same credit. Now, that may be down to the fact that United are, going through one of their worst periods, in living memory. But, there's talks, or there has been talks in the past about, should you be building a team around Bruno Fernandes? And he mentioned last week that he did get an offer to leave Manchester United in the summer, and he decided to stay. He believes in the project. I mean, surely if Bruno Fernandes is to leave Manchester United, it would cost you minimum 100 million to replace him.
Yeah, absolutely. He's scapegoated. He is scapegoated quite a lot. And you mentioned goals and assists there for, since he's came to Man United. This is actually his second highest goals and assists season since he's been here. 36 goals and assists. And this is the worst Man United team in Premier League history at the moment. So it's mad when you think about it that way. He is one of the best whether people like it or not, he is one of the best signings probably in our history in terms of what he's offering us in our probably worst period. He is an outstanding footballer, and look, I understand the tantrums and throwing his arms up, and Roy Keane likes to mention that because as a captain, I'm not going to argue with Roy Keane, because he is the best captain.
But Roy Keane done an awful lot of that in his career himself.
Yeah,
he just done it in a bloody winning team. That's the difference.
Yeah, and look, I understand where Roy Keane's coming from as a captain. He is the best captain in Premier League history. So I'm not going to argue with Roy Keane, but I think as a player, he deserves more credit, Bruno Fernandes, because he doesn't get it. He's I hear Arsenal fans comparing him to Odegaard. I'm like, oh my god, he is so overrated, Martin Odegaard. It's not even funny compared to what Bruno does. You don't see Odegaard producing what Bruno does every week for Man United. You don't, and I just don't think Bruno gets the credit he deserves because Man United are playing shite at the moment. Yeah. But he is the one shining light in this team that you can turn around and be like, do you know what? I love Bruno. Do you know? He just proves every week that he is a quality player, regardless of how shit we are. Yeah. So I think, yeah, you're right. I'd say 150 million, to be honest, or even 200.
And the thing about it is it's hard to know where his best position is, at the moment, because obviously Amram likes to play 2 6s and 2 10s. You nearly want a Bruno Fernandes in both of them areas. You want him to be able to receive the ball off the back four and progress it up the field. You also want him to be in the, in them number 10 pockets, just, trying to create. And, I think we said it, I said it on the watch along the other day that, there has been a few cases now where, we've seen Casemiro and Eriksen play in the same midfield together, and people are going, oh no, not again. But I think when it's Bruno in the 6 and it's Eriksen in the 10, taking that defensive responsibility away from Christian Eriksen and allowing him to play in that number 10 role actually gives us the option of having maybe a Bruno 2.0 in that position as well.
Yeah.
It is one of the areas, Drew. Do you think, when we're talking about that number 10 position, it's probably going to be Christian Eriksen to move on in the summer, and maybe Casemiro as well, although he did mention that he's happy in Manchester. Do you see that number 10 role as being an area that we probably do need to improve in the summer and go out and buy?
I think for sure the number 10 position, the inverted position, is a must. Just to have some backup, because those are the two key positions to make the forward work, or to make the attack work in this formation. Yeah. Especially with the wing backs as well, and with the 6 and the 8. You got the likes of maybe Haraldson from Lille who can who's capable of playing in that position. Or even just like other like young, like proven talent that can play in the big leagues, or even, you know, you can probably get like Adam Wharton from Crystal Palace to play in that position. Someone who can really advance the ball is someone who can excel in that area, just like Bruno and Joshua Zirkzee.
Yeah, and I do agree with you. I think we're going to have to be smart in our upcoming transfer windows. You know, it's not going to be the extravagance that we've seen over the last few years, where we go out and, you know, sign, you know, massive names and so on and so forth. But I think one of the players, Adam, that I'm looking forward to seeing more and more when he comes back is Kobbie Mainoo, because we've seen small glimpses of him playing that number 10 role before he got injured. And, you know, especially the game in Europe, I can't remember who it was.
FCSB.
Yeah. And he played really, really well.
Mm.
And again, I always said about Mainoo's not blessed with pace. And you don't see the Paul Scholes-esque 70-yard crossfield balls from Mainoo. He's very good, neat and tidy, 10, 15-yard passes. Would you agree in saying that that number 10 role is probably where we're going to see more of him coming back?
I think we should. And, you know, you alluded to the game in Europe against FCSB. You know, he was so good. You know, I know it's only FCSB, but, you know, we saw a glimpse of what he can do in that 10 role. You know, he has great movement. You know, those little 1-2 touch passes, I think, are very important in a formation like the 3-4-3. And, you know, I think he's not a 10 that's going to, you know, set the world alight, like creating mad chances like Bruno Fernandes does, or maybe even a Zirkzee. But he will keep it nice and tidy, and he will do the simple things. And the simple things can actually lead to big things at times. So, you know, it is, you know, it will be good to see him come back and play in that 10 role, because we saw what he can do against FCSB. So, you know, and it was just unfortunate that he got another injury. But I'm really looking forward to seeing him come back. And look, he could still play in 1-6 roles as well. You know, he could absolutely do that. But I do think the 10 role is definitely a once to watch for him. 100%.
Yeah, and it's handy to have them options, isn't it? Where Bruno can play in the 6, he can play in the 10. Mainoo can play in the 6, he can play in the 10. You know, Mason Mount, even to a stretch, if he ends up staying at Manchester United into next season, could be another one. You know what I mean?
I'm praying that Mount doesn't get injured, like, because I really want to see him in one of those 10 roles. We saw what he did at Chelsea under Thomas Tuchel in that formation. I pray, because I believe there's a player there. I really do. I really do.
Drew, what's your opinion on the likes of Mason Mount? Because obviously, you know, he's very quickly fallen into the same kind of category as Luke Shaw, where he just can't stay fit, you know. And again, we go back to what we mentioned a few minutes ago. When is the right time to cut your losses on a player? Would you like to see Mason Mount be given another season? He might have to if, you know, money is tight. Or do you think maybe, oh, look, it's been 2 years now and we've got nothing out of you. Do you move him on?
Mm-hmm. I mean, earlier what Adam said, I do agree that there is like something there for Mason Mount. In the minutes that he's played under Ruben Amorim, I think he plays like pretty well in this system in an inverted midfield position. It's too bad we haven't seen so much of that to get a fully formed opinion on that, because he just gets injured left and right. But I really want to see him excel in this formation, because I know that we can bring out that 21, 22 Chelsea player in him in this system, hopefully. But he's a creative player. I think he can add something to this team. He just needs to not get injured.
Yeah, he does. Yeah. And Ruben Amorim speaks so highly of him anytime he's mentioned, you know, about how much he loves him and how much of a good footballer he is, and so on and so forth. But yeah, look, want to move it on a little bit, guys, and we'll talk a little bit about the season ticket price increase. And look, obviously, we knew it was coming. You know, we knew there was going to be an increase coming. And you know, when you hear some of the stories over the last few days, where there was the option, not the option, but the suggestion that Manchester United would actually increase their ticket prices by 20% between this season and next season. 5% doesn't seem too bad, you know. But I mean, what's the I suppose the general consensus of this? Now, look, obviously none of us are from Manchester, but the fact that Ineos have come in, they're looking to streamline the business, and rightly so. Do you see, Adam, I'll go to you first on this. Do you see backlash coming to Ineos around this, or do you see this as a necessity? You know, when we've seen the figures at how maybe how hamstrung Manchester United are in relation to finances. Is this a must, really?
You could look at it two ways. You can look at it that way in terms of it's a must because of the fact that, you know, you heard Sir Jim come out and say that we would have ran out of money by the end of 2025, you know, and stuff like that if he didn't do certain things here and there behind the scenes. So, you know, again, increasing it by 5% isn't 20%, so it's not too bad, you know. But what annoys me is, now, and again, it's a negative also because you're increasing the season ticket prices for a third season in a row. You know, it's really not good enough. But what annoys me is they do that, but then they start bringing out the stories. Hugo Ekitike, is that his name?
Yeah.
Sesko. It's positivity. It's a positivity spin off a negative. Do you know? And they're trying to turn away the fans from that negative. You know, it's what the Glazers used to do a lot. So, you know, and they still do it. But you can look at it two ways. You can look at it as a positive and a negative. I look at it as a bit of both in that way. You know, 5% isn't too bad, but it's also a negative because it's the third season in a row doing that, do you know, and then trying to put positive stories, spins on it. So I don't know. It's a bit of a tough one, you know, but it's good. It's good because it's not too much, but it's also bad because it's not ideal, you know.
Yeah, and Drew, like obviously with Sir Jim Ratcliffe coming in, you know, is it a sign of things to come, or is it still, you know, maybe Glazer influence there? Look, you know, we know that Ineos have taken over the football operations, and the Glazers are still the majority owners. You know, financial decisions like these, you know, they don't change overnight. You know, is this something that, you know, you would see? I mean, it's always, I think it's always easy to put, you know, a season ticket increase announcement out a few days after we announce a brand new £2 billion stadium is coming, you know. But I'd like to get your opinion maybe from your side of the world in relation to the increases and maybe the Glazers and you know, the overall consensus about, I suppose, the lack of investment from them.
Yeah. Not gonna lie, the Glazers have not been the most productive owners or just they haven't been taking too much action as Jim Ratcliffe has as soon as he took over the football operations. I'll give Jim Ratcliffe that with this increase over the season ticket price. I saw this stat that ticket prices like for season tickets have just increased ever since like 2000, like I'm not like a big numbers or finance guy, but they've like gradually increased almost every single season. I don't know if that's like a compliment for the value of the club or if that's just because the club is running out of money and they're in desperate needs to get that money, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
But if this is, you know, to help save money to build a $2 billion stadium or to, you know, invest that money into transfers, then we could see that as a positive long-term thing. But as like a short-term thing, it looks very negative.
Yeah, absolutely. And you know, there has been, I suppose, some a reconfiguration of seats as well. I don't know if you've seen it with the seats in the direct vicinity of the dugouts will now be hospitality seats from next season going forward. So they will be more expensive. It's similar to what Chelsea have already done. I think Barcelona do it as well. Adam, is there a concern? Like obviously I've got a cup season ticket, so I get over maybe 4 or 5 times a year. You know, and us being obviously from Ireland, it's a 30-minute flight. You know what I mean? It's not too bad. Is there a concern that you're maybe forcing out the everyday match goer? And you know, and we've seen this throughout so many different clubs and not just in football, but you know, throughout sport, where, you know, when you price out the local fans, the atmosphere tends to die in the stadium, you know, over maybe a prolonged period of time. Is there a concern there? But like, and I always go back to the Celtic season ticket model, where I think is it 85% of of Celtic's home ground is all season tickets. You know what I mean? So, is there a worry about that with United and Old Trafford?
Yeah, there is, and like if you're taking, the match day going fans away from that, it's, you're not going to get like the best of atmospheres that you would usually get, and that's just a fact. Like, and they've apparently frozen season tickets for people under the age of 16. So like if you're a parent and you're one of the match day going fans and you want to like take your son or daughter to the match to give them that experience, you actually can't do that right now.
Yeah.
So it is a bit of a bad time,
And you know what? It's like tickets for under 16s and stuff like that, they should be frozen and they should never be increased, in my opinion, because they're the future fans, and they're the ones that are starting to go to the games on their own with their mates, and they're fucking off their heads on the Stretford end. You know what I mean? And they're learning all the songs, and they're getting to, a group of friends going together, and they're going to be going forever. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I think it's disappointing that there is an increase, but again, look, I can understand why when you're talking about, inflation and the cost of living going up, everything is going up. So I can understand United doing it. And I think, I hope that the 5% increase that we've seen is not the first stepping stone towards, that being a regular thing. Because I think like Adam, you said, there's been 3 years in a row where there's been price increases, but I think there was a freeze on them for 11 years prior to that. Now, that might sound like, oh, Jesus, the Glazers are great, but the Glazers drastically increased the price when they first arrived at United for the first maybe 4 or 5 years. And then after that, they froze them for the best part of the decade. But they already had them increased so much that they didn't need to increase them anymore. You know what I mean? Yeah. But yeah, look, I mean, we'll see what happens, as it comes, and we'll see what the future holds. But
I just hope all like these things that they're doing for like the now, like these negative stuff that's seen as negative, like they are negative. But I hope like in the future, then it can just be like looked back on as, oh, okay, that just happened, that just had to happen, and then in the future, then we'll progress forward. That's what I'm hoping, but.
And like nobody minds if and Drew, I'll put this to you, like nobody minds an increase in the price of something if the product is good. Now
exactly.
The product at Old Trafford has been on a steady decline over the last decade or so. And if Netflix didn't have all of their original documentaries or whatever it was, obviously then you wouldn't be able to justify a price increase. And it comes back to that. It's down to entertainment more than anything else. Do you see, and again, look, this is probably a silly question, but do you see maybe a lack of match-going fans, everyday match-going fans? Look, I mean, I think there's 400,000 people on the waiting list for season tickets. So you're never not going to have Old Trafford full. You know what I mean? But again, going back to it, is there a concern that you're pricing out a certain minority of people?
I mean, it definitely depends on like, what economic class they're in, whether like they're on the lower end or the middle end for sure. And it just looks like once the season ticket prices are going up, maybe that's more of you'll only see like people who are on the higher end of the economy or like the elites going to the games, which is obviously, those aren't like the soul of the fans. The soul of the fans belong to everyone, to all levels of the economy. And so I think it's tough. It's tough to make an assumption of like whether it's, for the better or for the worst. But I think it should be, affordable for all people on the levels of society. But in my opinion, I think the majority of the fans come from the middle and the lower end more than the high end.
Yeah, absolutely. You're spot on. You're absolutely spot on. And again, we'll leave it on this. If the football team is winning on the pitch week in, week out, nobody will care about a 5% increase. You know what I mean? And I think it'll be, well, not that nobody will care. You'll always fight.
Yeah, it'll be worth their money.
Yeah, exactly. That's absolutely it. Right, guys, I want to move it on. I want to talk a little bit about, obviously, we spoke about Rasmus Højlund a little bit, and the fact that he may need you know, he may need some help going into next season. Obviously, we can't do anything between now and the end of the season. I'll go to you first on this, Adam. Obviously, United have been linked with a number of different strikers in the last few weeks. Benjamin Sesko, Gyökeres, you know, Osimhen, new name that's arisen today. Eintracht Frankfurt striker Hugo Ekitike. Having a look at his stats before we come on live, and you know, he's having a good season. In fairness to him, he's got 16 goals and 7 assists in I think 35 games. What's your thoughts on this? Obviously, look, we need it. Look, we need a new striker in the summer, and we're going to get one, hopefully. Do you have a preference? You know, obviously, we spoke a little bit last year when Joshua Zirkzee was coming, and we all thought he was a number 9. We're going, all right, okay, the boys are going to share the workload. Everything's going to be grand. They might get 15 goals each a season. Lovely, happy days. And Zirkzee turns out to be more of a number 10. Is it a case now where, look, we've got to get that 20, 25 goal a season striker? We just have to do it.
Yeah, and I don't think Hugo, how would you say his name?
Ekitike.
Ekitike, yeah, no. No. I don't, like, he failed the PSG as well. I don't want him anywhere near Man United. But look, again, he could, like, if we were to go for him and he comes in, I'm always going to back him. You know, I'm not going to, you know, slander him like as soon as he comes in. I'll always back a player when they come in, but for me, it wouldn't be my preference. I think someone like Osimhen could be my preference for now, because you know, you look at Sesko. I actually really like Benjamin Sesko, like exactly the type of profile I would love at Man United. But you can't have him and Højlund, to be honest, as your 2 strikers, because you know they're both young, and I think Højlund, no, again, they could benefit each other. They could learn off each other, maybe bounce off each other. But I just think Osimhen, because he's done it in the Serie A, he's obviously done it in Turkey, you know, and he scored. I don't know really his stats this season for Galatasaray, but I know they're high, you know. So again, you could get a Victor Osimhen in, and you know, maybe a Gyökeres, you know, but I don't know, like. My type of preference for now, so Højlund could maybe benefit, is an experienced striker that has done it, you know, season in, season out. But there's not really that many strikers like that out there besides an Osimhen or someone like that, you know. So for now, I would probably go Osimhen. But again, I wouldn't be too annoyed with the likes of, you know, maybe Sesko. I would love Sesko at Man United, because I've seen him play in the Champions League for Leipzig. He's a quality player. I really like him.
Yeah, and I suppose, Drew, you know, bringing in the likes of a Victor Osimhen, for example, if you bring him in, I think what is he? He's 26 or 27 at the moment.
27.
27. You bring him in, give him a 4-year deal. I mean, once that 4-year deal is up, I think Rasmus Højlund is still only 24, 25 years of age, you know, and that's not to say that he won't be playing, you know, every second week or whatever the case may be. What's your thoughts on the striker area? Would you be going for a standout striker like Osimhen, or you know, would you prefer maybe the young mold to the way Ruben Amorim wants kind of striker?
The thing is, United, in my opinion, need to stop looking at, like, you know, these big names in Europe that they obviously cannot afford. Especially Osimhen. Napoli are assholes to negotiate with. And that's gonna be like a Harry Kane type of business, you know, that we almost got done last or 2 summers ago. United need to look at someone who's Premier League proven and that has played similarly in a system. My biggest one was Victor Gyökeres, who played at Sporting CP under Ruben in that same system. He excelled in it. But the thing is, it's looking unlikely that he'll come if we don't play Champions League football next season. Yeah, I think one of the biggest names that United need to look for is, you know, the likes of Mateta on Crystal Palace. Crystal Palace play that same system, and look at what Mateta's doing right now. He's ripping it up with Crystal Palace, and he's scoring consistently for them. Or even, maybe this is a bit of a hot take, you could probably look at Liam Delap as well. Look what he's doing at Ipswich Town. He's their best player on that team, and he could fit well into the system.
Yeah. And he come back to that, Adam. I mean, obviously we've seen the likes of Delap quite a lot, and you know, when you go from hearing the word Osimhen to Delap, it sometimes can feel a bit, you know. Yeah. But he, you know, I think Drew was right in terms of fitting into a certain system. He certainly does match the profile.
No, definitely. Look, I've seen Ipswich play quite a lot this season, and you know what? They have been unlucky in games, and so has the Lap. You know, like the Lap has missed a few chances this season, but he's played really well in those games. You know, and I go back to what Drew said there. Mateta, like honestly, I think he would actually be perfect as well because you know we're on about the 3-4-3 system. You know, as Drew said, Crystal Palace do play that way as well. So, you know, those two options are really good as well. I think I would actually prefer probably Mateta to the Lap. I think Mateta, is kind of more of the profile I would love at Man United.
He's been around that little bit longer. You talk about Premier League proven and so on, and look, the Lap is, for, I suppose, for the chance creation that you're going to get at a team like Ipswich. He's done absolutely fantastic this season. But yeah, I mean, if it was a toss up between both of them, I agree with both of you. It would be a Mateta for me. Drew, in relation outside of the striker area, obviously United are going to look to strengthen in the summer. We've already spoken about central midfield. Reading a report this morning suggesting that Ruben Amorim is looking at recategorizing Ahmad to a wing-back next season, which will potentially mean we won't go into the market for another right wing-back. What's your thoughts around that? I put up an Instagram post. Now, again, look, I can't remember who the actual source was on it, but I mean, look, we've seen Ahmad play as a wing-back before, and I think for an awful long time, we actually hadn't scored a goal from open play without Ahmad playing as a wing back. Which proves how attacking Ruben Amorim likes his wing backs to be. What's your thoughts on that whole kind of area? Obviously, right wing back is going to be a key area in the summer. Do you stick with Ahmad, or do you twist and go out and buy somebody?
Ahmad has the capability of playing a right wing back. We saw him play right wing back against Ipswich in Ruben Amorim's first season, and he got an assist in the first 5 minutes. I don't know about him being a long-term right wing back. I would say he could definitely be an option if we're out of defenders like Matsraoui or Dalot, but I don't rate Dalot playing on a wing back. I would really want us to focus on getting like natural wing backs. Yeah. You have options like maybe Jeremy Frimpong from Bayer Leverkusen, who's one of the best wingbacks in the world right now. Apparently, he has a 40 million release clause, which could be affordable for us in the summer if we go after him. But there's probably going to be many clubs going after him this summer, and maybe United might not be the most attractive, depending on if we play Champions League football or not. But it's a what if situation for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, obviously United have missed out on Kenda from Sporting, which I suppose is a bit of a disappointment considering how closely linked we were with him. But it's not something that I was overly concerned about. Now, a couple of seasons ago under, Richard Arnold and John Murtagh, I would have been pulling my hair out because I know we wouldn't have had a backup option, but Adam, to me specifically, it doesn't feel as if Ineos and the board now only have one option. They seem like they know what they're doing. Where you miss out on a Kenda, you go, okay, well that's not too bad. We'll get somebody else. Do you maybe agree with that positivity going into the transfer window after what we've seen so far with maybe last summer and then I suppose the Dargu and Heaven transfer in January?
Yeah, like last summer they were getting deals done fairly quickly, which I found very surprising. When we signed Xerxes and then went straight for Euro and like 2 days later, that was a major surprise to me because we don't usually do that. Like, we take years on deals. So, again, I do think they'll have backups, to Quenda. Like, I wasn't actually major disappointed about that either because, he's 17, he's one the future. I'm not too,
And when you hear directly the direct quote as well that he wants to play as a winger more so than a wing back, then you just say, okay, just go then,
Yeah, after Chelsea, like so. I think Frimpong, like as Drew said, would be the perfect option. He is one of the best wing backs in the world. He is the perfect option, but again, it does depend on if Man United do win the Europa League. So I don't I don't see us getting Frimpong, but they should absolutely have backups, and I do believe they do. So hopefully, no, again, Ahmed, we have seen him play as a wing back. I think he played as a wing back against Man City as well. And we saw what he did in that game. So I think it could be an option for that as well, for Ahmed to play a wing back. But I do think we need to go for a natural wing back. I think that's a must.
Yeah, I agree. And look, there's options out there. You know what I mean? There are, like, Frimpong is only 22 years of age. You've got your man Yankuto, I think his name is, the Brazilian. I think he plays for Girona. I think there are options out there. There are absolutely options out there, 100%. Finally, then, guys, want to talk, get your opinion, Drew, before we finish up on the other end of the field, and specifically about Andre Onana, because there's been a lot of maybe heat coming his way, none more so than the lad sitting on the other side of you over there. What's your opinion's been on? Because obviously, look, we're not going to be able to go out and sign everybody in the summer, and there are going to have to be some areas that we don't focus on. How are you feeling about the goalkeeping situation? Obviously, I think we could improve it, like we could the majority of positions, but how high on the priority list is it for you?
Listen, Onana has been in bad form for the past 2 seasons. I mean, I'll give him credit. The last 4 games, well done for him. That's what we expect every single game of the season, not just for 4 and then go on a bad run for the next 3-4 games and make a very bad mistake. And that's not normal to see for a top club. It's a tough situation for the goalkeeping thing, because I want to see more of Altay Bayındır. Maybe give him a run of games. Maybe see how Onana responds to that. Because I actually became a big fan of Altay after his Arsenal performance. And before he got injured, he didn't do that well. He didn't make any mistakes, or any bad mistakes as Onana did. I mean, against Tottenham, I don't count that as a mistake. He got bullied by Bergvall. But goalkeepers are going to cost a lot more than they did in the old seasons. So I would want to see more of Altay getting more games to see if we actually desperately need a new number 1, because I don't think that's the biggest priority that we should go after in the transfer window.
Yeah. Adam, what's your thoughts on it? Obviously, again, look, I agree with Drew in terms of being there, done absolutely nothing wrong, except for them really weird kickouts where he kept kicking it left. Every goal kick just kept going left. But other than that, I mean, I'd be a bit old fashioned, the kind of, not to sound too much like Roy Keane, but goalkeeper's job is just to keep the ball out of the net, and everything else is a bonus. Where do you put it in terms of priority in the summer?
I would actually have it a bit high up, because I've had enough of Onana. I really have. No, I really have. The guy is brain dead. He is absolutely brain dead. And as you said there, the goalkeeper's job is to keep the ball from going into the net. He can't do that. He can't do that. And people talk about, but his distribution, it's not great. If you actually watch the games, it's not that good. And he kicks the ball out of play quite a lot, and he just lumps it forward to Rasmus Højlund, who doesn't win the ball anyway. But I just don't think he is the goalkeeper to go forward. And look, Bayındır's performance against Arsenal was better than any Andre Onana performance this season, by the way, and I stand firmly on that. So that says a lot. It really does. So I actually do think it should be a priority, to be honest. I don't know. Again, you could play Bayındır, hopefully when he comes back from injury. I don't know if he's out for the rest of the season, but
no, I think it's short term, I think.
Yeah, so if he's back before the end of the season, give him a couple of games, see how he does, and we'll go from there. But I actually do think a goalkeeper should be a priority. I think Onana is dirt. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Really.
Right, well, we'll leave it on that one. So a nice way to finish. Onana is dirt. But guys, look, I appreciate you coming on. Drew, debut on the channel. Thanks for coming on. I hope to have you on more times in the future. Obviously, we do these every Tuesday, so you're more than welcome any Tuesday to join us whenever you can.
Yeah, I appreciate the invite, Jack. I love my time on the show, and if you need another guest, just hit me up.
Yeah, absolutely. I certainly will. And of course, Adam as well. Appreciate you coming on as always. I'm sure you'll be on next Tuesday as well if you're available. Thanks everybody for watching as well, guys. I've linked the guys. I've linked Adam's TikTok in the description, and Drew, I've linked your Instagram down there as well. So make sure you're going checking out the guys' channels. Follow them on all of their platforms as well. Do smash a like on the video if you haven't done so already, guys. Hit that subscribe button as well if you're new to the channel. And I'll catch you in the next one. Take it easy.